If you'd like to get early access to more videos like this and help decide what you'd like to see next, please consider joining the Patreon. The link is in the description. Hello everyone. Today's video is about a story which, as far as I know, is the only time Wilbert and Christopher Awdry's characters were allowed to be used by another author. It raises the question of if it is canon or fanon, but first I'll read the story in question and then we'll have a discussion about it. Chattering Coaches by Richard Greenhugh. Corin the carriage and Cora the brake van were sitting side by side in the paint shop at Pendray, enjoying the sensations of tickly paintbrushes as the bearded reverend and his helpers spread their new coats over their sides. "Tell me again," said Corin. "You say our old railway is running again, and we are going back to carry passengers just like we did in the old days. Tell me what it's like there now." Cora, who had been back a few years ago with Kerr the engine, was more than happy to tell her old friend everything she remembered about the visit. "Well," she twittered, "when I went home last time there were two engines there, Simon the Simplex, who was red and worked very hard, and Willie the Ruston, who did not have a cab and looked in need of a good coat of paint. A rather noisy, rough sort of engine, if you ask me." "But what about the carriage you told me about? You said she looked a bit like me?" "Yes," said Cora. "Her name was Tiger, and when I first saw her, I thought it was you, and you had managed to come along with Kerr and I on our holiday. But when I got closer, I realized that she did not have any bogies, and so she did not run as smoothly as you do." "I shall look forward to meeting her anyway," said Corin. "Once I had 7 sisters, all of us bogie carriages, and although some people said we looked the same, each one of us had some little differences, so we never got confused about which of us was which. The last of my sisters I left behind over 40 years ago when I was rescued. I often wonder what became of her." "Did I tell you they used her to—" Corin's voice shook. "Keep chickens in?" "Yes, you did mention it," said Cora, who had heard that story many times before. She herself had watched Corin and her sisters taken away from her old railway, and had quite enjoyed the next few years when any passengers wanting to stay after the rain, and it always seemed to be raining on their old railway, had to ride in her. She had been very surprised when, after nearly 10 years on her new railway, Corin had appeared one day on the back of a lorry, looking rather sorry for herself, but she had recovered from her surprise and made her welcome, and while Malice and Chisel had worked to restore Corin to her former condition, the two old friends had been able to swap stories about what they had been doing while they were apart. Each was quite convinced that her adventures were the most exciting, but they both agreed that they had had quite the most eventful lives of any of the carriages in the shed at Pendray, whatever Glenda and Valerie, the 2 tram carriages, might think. Soon the big day came, and Cora and Corin watched while Hugh the loco and Mary the coal wagon were loaded up for the journey. "Doesn't Hugh look smart in his red livery?" said Corin. "Yes," said Cora, "and look how he's preening himself, pretending that Mary is his tender." He always used to have a tender behind," giggled Corin, "especially when we used to bump him with our buffers. He didn't have any then." "Behave you," said Cora. After a while, the low loader came back and Corin was eased up the ramp onto the deck and prepared for her journey. "What about me?" complained Cora. "If I don't go soon, it will be too dark to see anything on the journey." "Don't worry," said the engineering manager. "I got just the thing for you." Cora watched in consternation as Lenny, the railway lorry, backed towards her. "I can't go on that," she whimpered. "Sorry, but it's that or nothing," said the engineering manager firmly. Cora found herself being winched up the back of the lorry and then tipped over as the hydraulic rams lowered the tipping floor. Soon she was on the road, trying to retain some shreds of dignity as the little lorry followed the much grander low loader carrying Corin, who was enjoying every minute of the ride, not least because of Cora's humiliation. "That'll teach her to be a know-it-all," she thought. "Just because she stayed on our old railway after I left and went back first, she needs taking down a peg or two." The journey did not take long. For Corin, who had been to England after leaving her old railway, and then come back to Wales after many years away, it was a surprise how close the 2 railways actually were. Cora, of course, had been on the same journey before, when she had moved straight from old railway to new, and again when she and Kerr had been back. Soon both lorry and low loader had arrived, and a smart blue engine was easing Corin off the low loader, while poor Cora found herself being tipped up and almost sliding down the back of Lenny's load bed. Suddenly she heard the blue engine introducing himself to Corin.
"Hello, I'm Willie the Ruston," he said. "I run the passenger trains here now. Glad you could come and give us a hand."
"What a charming engine," said Corin.
And such smart blue paint. It's funny, but I was expecting someone quite different, she said, glancing at the flustered Cora, who was expecting that at any moment Corin would tell Willie how she had described him.
Hello, Cora, smiled Willie. Nice to see you back again. My, doesn't your paintwork look smart? I wondered if you had recognised me. My driver, the furry Brummy, has given me a carbon running boards and painted me this new colour since you were last here. Cora tried to look as though she met engines transformed in this way every day and managed to mutter, "Nice to be back," as she followed Willie and Corin down the old tramway line into the yard where Hugh and Mary were waiting for them. "Welcome home," peeped Simon the Simplex, who was sitting on a siding, with Tiger the carriage behind him. Through her confusion, Cora noticed how much smarter things were than when she and Kerr had been home. More sidings, a new signal box, and what was that at the side of the shed? A platform, no less. She would certainly have some stories to tell Kerr next time she saw him. Willie uncoupled and Hugh backed down onto the train. "Okay, girls," he said, "we're going for a spin up to Corris." His driver eased the regulator, and as the train pulled away, the memories came flooding back for all three of them. "Look, there's the old water filler pipe," said Corin. "Looks a bit cracked now," said Cora. "And the old Dunny's still here," chortled Hugh as he passed the end of the shed. "How indelicate," laughed Corin. Soon they puffed up the bank and over the crossing and arrived at Corris Station. "Whatever happened to my old carriage shed?" exclaimed Corin. "I told you that the station had changed," said Cora. "Not for the better, I'm thinking," muttered Corin. Suddenly they heard a voice coming from the building on the other side of the station yard, a quavering, weak voice. "Corin? Is that really you?" it said. Corin went white under her brown paint. "It sounds like, but it can't be. Chicken?" she cried. One of the train crew pulled open a sliding door in the building, and in the gloom inside, Corin could just make out a familiar shape. The faint voice came again. "Corin, you know I always hated that nickname you gave me." "Sister, it really is you?" said Corin. Cora grinned. This was one bit of information she had deliberately not passed on to Corin. "Of course it's me," said the voice, sounding stronger and slightly cross. "I got rescued and brought back here many years ago now. I've been wondering when you would get tired of showing off your new railway and find your way home. Didn't Cora tell you I was waiting to see you again?" "Cora," said Corin threateningly. But Cora was busy looking the other way and chatting to a pair of wagons in the siding. Any crossness that Corin felt about being kept in the dark was soon dissipated, as she and her sister both tried to tell each other what had happened to them since they had been parted, until the driver and guard put their hands over their ears and said it was time to take the train back to Maespoeth. Corin promised to come again the next day, and left happy knowing that her sister was enjoying her retirement in the museum and was being cared for by a nice man who was mending her broken joints and making her feel young again. Soon, they were back at the engine shed. Corin was worried. "If my carriage shed has gone, where am I going to spend the night while I'm here?" she wondered. "Outside in the rain, I expect," said Cora, who was used to being outside most of the time. "But that will spoil my nice new paintwork," wailed Corin. "Look on the bright side. There's no sign of rain at the moment," said Cora. "Be real," said Corin. "This is Corris. It always rains here." While they were chatting, shunting was going on and Cora was put in the ballast siding next to another brake van who had befriended her on her last visit. Then the engine shed doors were opened, and Corin got the shock of her life. Hugh gently shunted her into the shed towards... No, it couldn't be Tiger, she was outside. "Look out!" cried Corin. "We're going to hit that mirror." She felt her buffers ease up against another pair of buffers. This was no mirror, it was another carriage, and through her confusion she noticed that it carried buffers just like the one she wore, buffers that had been fitted on the new railway. "Welcome home," said a strange voice. "I'm Corley, and you must be Corin. My builders told me that you were coming, and that they were planning to surprise you by not telling you about me." But, who are you?" flustered Corin. "You look like one of my sisters, but apart from poor Chicken, they all perished long ago." "I'm the new carriage," said Coralie proudly. "They designed me to look just like you, but underneath I'm built to 21st century safety standards with steel framing. Those nice army men who come and inspect us won't allow timber frames like yours in new carriages anymore." "My frames have done me all right for the last 100 years or so," said Corin huffily. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you," Coralie apologized. "I haven't been here long. My two builders, who call themselves the A-Team,
because their names both start with an A, are still working to finish me, so that we can go out together on trains, just like you did with your sisters when you were young.
Corin was recovering her poise, and decided it was incumbent upon her to take this youngster under her wing.
I shall look forward to that, she said, beginning to look about her. Are we really going to spend the nights together with you inside his engine shed? When I lived here, we only came into the shed when the carpenter wanted to mend us. Simon and Willie weren't keen on giving up their place in the shed, but Tiger said that you and Hugh are much older than them and deserve special treatment, while they need me to stay inside to keep me dry while they work on me, said Coralie. So, for the duration of your visit, we are going to be sharing the shed together. I was rather hoping that you would be able to pass on some tips about working here from your memories and tell me a bit about what it was like in the old days.
It had been a long and exciting day, and Corin was beginning to feel very sleepy. After all, when you are over a century old, things can get a bit much sometimes.
I shall be happy to do so, she said primly, but for now I really need my beauty sleep. I have to look my best when Hugh and I run the special trains they have told me about. See you in the morning. Good night, murmured Coralie.
Nostar, whispered Hugh, and the carriage fell silent, the old engine and his old carriage dreaming of their young days at Corris, while the young carriage dreamed of all the exciting things that were going to happen now the special guests had arrived. Right, so that sweet little tale has some names and places which may be familiar to you, but may not be, so let's start with those. The steam engines mentioned are Kerr and Hugh. These characters were developed by Christopher Awdry for the book Hugo Sliding. They are based on the real-life engines now called Sir Hayden and Edward Thomas of the Tallaghlian Railway, back when they only had numbers 3 and 4 respectively on the Corris Railway. 2 more engines are mentioned, Simon the Simplex and Willie the Rushton. These are based on current Corris locomotives, and Willie the Rushton is a pun on Willie Rushton, who narrated some of the railway series. Next, the rolling stock. The name that should be most familiar is of course Cora. She is based on the old Corris brake van that now works on the Tallaghlian. In the railway series, Wilbur Awdry names the counterpart Cora, and this name has been used for the Tallaghlian van too. The other rolling stock characters are all created by the author. Corin is the original Corris coach that now runs on the Tallaghlian. Chicken is the original Corris coach that now resides in the museum there. Coralie is a new build coach number 21, and Tiger is another new build coach number 20, named by the sponsor who paid for the coach in memory of his wife. Glenda and Valerie are the names given to the Tallaghlian coaches 14 and 15, formerly based on the Glyn Valley Railway. Lastly, Mary is the name of the goods wagon the Tallaghlian bought from the Corris Railway, named as it is a Queen Mary class wagon. The story appeared in the Correspondent, the newsletter of the Corris Railway, number 145 from 2003 if you want to track down a copy, and it was written as a fictionalised version of the celebration events when stock from the Tallaghlian visited the nearby Corris to celebrate their reopening of passenger services. I have read the story out as close to how it appears in print as possible. It was not written under the same conditions as a railway series story, and is for a different audience. It is a pastiche of a railway series story for a group of enthusiasts, and so some of the sentences are a little long to be comfortably read aloud. I hope I did okay though. Kerr and Cora's visit to the line mentioned in the story happened in 1996, when Edward Thomas briefly returned to the line. The places mentioned can also be found in Hugo Sliding too. However, they have been developed in preservation with the new platform and museum. The bank and crossing mentioned are major locations in Hugo Sliding. The people mentioned could easily be distinguished by those who know the volunteers of the Corris and Tallaghlian Railways apparently, but as I'm not one of those, I can't name them. Oh, and if you didn't know, Nostar is Welsh for good night. I've wondered about this story for a few years, so I got in contact with Richard, who was able to clear up a few aspects in relation to the story. He said it was written to mark the unique occasion of Sir Hayden revisiting the old line, and may do a follow-up when they visit again in the summer of 2024, when there will be 2 falcons running the Corris again for the first time in more than a century. I hope you like this little narration and exploration of a story about some engines and rolling stock we know well. Aside from there being 2 identical vans called Cora, this story doesn't clash at all with the established canon, but I think it's fair to say it's a story written by a fan, although for once permission has been given by an Awdry to adapt them into a new tale. Thanks for watching everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the Patreon like these fine folk to help pick the next video subject, get early access to new content and help support the channel.